That's a good question over there.
Fundamentally disagree on your ideas and stuff
Sure.
like that.
So now the question is compulsory education. This is one of those areas.
No, sir. With all due respect, I have to step back. Stop.
Okay.
It's not compulsory education. It's compulsory attendance. They're not.
Okay. When it comes to compulsory attendance, I should say, compulsory attendance, it's one of those things where it's often confused, as I basically just did, with compulsory education. I think that to be a citizen in a democracy, you have to be educated. Like whether that education is coming from homeschooling or private schooling or some other thing or some kind of standardized test or something, an uneducated citizenry, and that includes both math and reading skills, very fundamental things, is dangerous. And anything that doesn't allow that's a problem. Now, in terms of requiring people to attend a specific type of school, that to me is ridiculous. I mean, I don't see the advantage of that at all. I mean, personally, I've been running the education business for the last 8 or 9 years. Before that, working for other education companies, and there has not been one aspect of that that's been forced. And yet, the same people are coming back again and again because I'm providing service that outcompete the other people in the marketplace. When you have things that get in the way of a free marketplace, creating the things that free marketplaces create, which means high quality goods and services, it's always a problem, and it's always something that we should try to reduce. Now, whether we do that immediately or whether we do that second, that can be sort of debated. But in principle, I think that we're on the same page in that sort of anything that forces the free market away from its natural path of creating excellent goods and services is intrinsically a problem. I hope that answers what you asked.
It's close.
Okay,
I
let me
have
clarify.
some issues with building and statism and those that subscribe to it. And yes, you come from a private sector vector, if you will. But in my mind, some may look at that and you're leveraging the fact that the compulsory attendance, which is Julie Hutchinson, dumbs things down. That's destroying any kind of critical thought, and people see a mediocre product there. So you also have some vested interest in maintaining the status quo. If you will, and grab the low-hanging fruit, you have no vested interest in destroying that.
That's actually, that's actually, I think I see what you're saying over there. And if I'm wrong, just interrupt me because it's kind of a
free market. You would be competing on.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is to a certain extent true that the worse public schools get, the better it is for my personal business. Because the worse that private schools get, the better it is for my business. The worse that schools in general get, the better it is for my business. I mean, the worse my competitors are in the private sector, in the pure private sector, not nonprofit, but for-profit, corporate private sector. The worse they do, the better it is for me. So that to a certain extent is true. However, as a citizen seeing the entire economy eroding, that danger is so much worse for, I think, all of us. Whether it affects me personally more or less, I think, at least to me, it's a non-issue. I mean, there are times when something is like so bad that no matter what it does for you, it's just not worth it. And I think this is one of those times. So in terms of compulsory attendance, and we're talking about compulsory attendance in some kind of a approved school that meets certain criteria, and or compulsory homeschooling program that meets certain criteria, I think that's something that's going to have to be looked at. I mean, like I can't give you a super simple answer over here. In general, I think that sort of. Okay. Well, let me answer it. Let me answer it this way. Sure. And let me answer it this way. In an ideal world, there would be no compulsory attendance at all. In the world that we have right now, if we allow a situation where people can't read or write, then we have a situation. I mean, a system that's not going to allow people to read, that's not going to train people to read or write, to me is intrinsically problematic. So some kind of compulsory education, I'm absolutely in favor. Some kind of compulsory attendance to a very specific form of education, I'm not in favor of. Does that address it directly?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
Not for my satisfaction.
Are you familiar with John Stuart Mill's opinion? And this what value between 1 and 100, 100 being highest, would you assign to one on the subject area?
On the subject of liberty, where would I put John Stuart Mill? I'm going to actually have to defer this one a little bit because John Stuart Mill's. Let me just admit, I sometimes get my people a bit.
You're on liberty.
John Stuart Mills. Are we talking about utilitarianism, or are we talking about
Here's a proponent of utilitarianism.
Okay, here's a proponent of utilitarianism. I just want to make sure I have the right person in my mind, because sometimes I get, when in my head I was thinking of John Locke. Sorry, John Locke, I would put on a scale of 0 to 100. I put it as about 5,000. I think like the idea that our country is a social contract and that we're doing things, that to me is fantastic. In terms of pure utilitarianism, as I mentioned before, is a means to an end, but it's a dangerous ideology if it becomes the way that you sort of map your entire economy, if you will, your entire government. If you say, this is what we need to have happen, and this is what it's going to take, see, that's a really slippery slope. And we have slipped so far down that slope that we're now kind of in a slippery valley, or we're at the bottom of that. So the ideals of utilitarianism, to me, is not the way what the driving force. I mean, there is an idea of right, there's an idea of wrong. And sure, if we take money from one person and give it to somebody else and make somebody else happy, I mean, to quote George Bernard Shaw, he who robs Peter to pay Paul can always depend on the support of Paul. I mean, that makes sense, but it's not the right way. So in that sense, I would disagree. I mean, in terms of more modern philosophy, another person that I actually very strongly disagree with, at least his application of the ideas of a philosopher called John Rawls, who had this idea of a veil of ignorance, and he said, we should imagine that we're all sitting behind this veil of ignorance. We don't know what kind of person we're going to be, so we should make a society accordingly. And to me, if I was sitting behind that veil of ignorance, I would say, for God's sakes, John Rawls, don't let me become lazy and indolent. Don't let me think that I can't do stuff that I can do. So they're very kind of similarly related philosophers in a lot of ways. We're looking at the outcome rather than the process. And I think that the fairness of the game, the fairness of the process, is more important than the equality of the outcomes. That makes sense. You got a question that keeps getting cut off.
She didn't have, the Democrats didn't have to worry about the Libertarian Party because they'll never organize. How do you think the Libertarian Party is going to organize?
I was at Students for Liberty this February, and I just couldn't believe how different it was in the way libertarian stuff used to be, even a decade ago. I mean, this could have been young Republicans. And this was an organized group, and this was a group that was so fierce and so knowledgeable. And here's just an example. I mean, the campaign, it was organized beautifully. It went off without a hitch. I mean, if you look at how organized we are on Facebook, I mean, it's that old adage that organizing libertarians are like herding cats. I don't think it applies anymore. I think that we're changing that kind of like, to use Ben Franklin's analogy, like rattlesnakes. In times of need, we stick together and we fight. One thing that I saw there, and this is what separates, I think, the young libertarians in America from the young Republicans, the young Democrats. A speaker from Columbia had come, from the country Columbia, not the school, and he made a sort of loose connection between socialism and the FARC terrorist movement. And then at the end, he kind of paused for questions. And the first three questions were all saying the same thing. They were challenging him. They were saying, I disagree. I don't like the FARC and I don't like socialism, but I don't feel that your connection was done fairly. And the fact that you have a group that's not just organized, but willing to challenge even our own people, willing to challenge, and as you saw today, willing to challenge even the people on more or less the same side, shows that in addition to organization, I think we have a kind of a sort of very rigorous kind of testing process to make sure that people that we're supporting really understand what they're talking about, really support what we're looking for, which I don't think that you're seeing in the other parties.